Welcome back, everybody. Right, now, it's not déjà vu, it's just something very similar to what we did yesterday. A Just Stop Oil protest in London has been branded as unacceptable by the government after a fire engine and an ambulance were apparently blocked. So videos from LBC, who I wish we didn't have to mention, their social media show the emergency vehicles unable to get through traffic, blue lights flashing after protesters blocked 3 roads with some gluing themselves to the road. Here's a similar scene, just this time with a fire engine. So there's 2 different video clips there, both of which appear to show emergency vehicles with their lights on being blocked because Just Stop Oil are in the road. It's the group's 11th consecutive day of disruption in London. They're calling for the government to stop all new oil and gas licences. So there's a lot to get stuck into here, OK? And I wanted to understand exactly why they were doing this. The Prime Minister's spokesman said that protesters that stop emergency services from potentially saving lives are unacceptable. Well, here now, to give his side of the story, is James Skeet, who is a spokesperson for Just Stop Oil. Thank you for coming in again, twice in 2 days. We'll shake hands again. Still no glue. You love to see it. Right,
see
OK.
you, Patrick.
Let me just take you back, before we get stuck into, to this time yesterday, OK? So we're going back in time, where you told me and our viewers and our listeners about your ambulance policy.
Yep. Ambulance lane. We always leave a route through for people in need. I don't want anyone getting hurt, and you know, it's like, this is not my idea of a good time. I don't want to annoy anyone. I don't want to ruin anyone's day. But honestly, like, the situation they're in is so serious.
OK, what happened then, mate? Because we saw ambulances and a fire service there being blocked from getting through.
Well, I do wish you'd run the whole clip there, Patrick, because actually, if you'd run the whole thing, you'd see that the fire engine gets through, our people get straight out of the way, and in fact, it was one of our people that advised that ambulance the shortest way to go around to avoid any traffic.
So we do have clips here which do show some ambulances and some fire trucks getting through. But, I mean, you have to acknowledge there, though, that that's a massive inconvenience for people, and it does appear to show that. Look at the ambulance, it's got its blue lights on. There could be someone in the back having a heart attack, and there's a load of numpties in orange there blocking his way.
Right, just to get everyone up to speed of what we're asking for, Just Stop Oil are asking for, we're demanding that there's no new licensing and consents. No new licensing and consents for any fossil fuel licenses in the UK, and that is entirely in line with.
Look at that. Just look at that. Let's bring that back up. Bring that back up, because look, you did say to me yesterday that you had a blue light policy. That ambulance has got blue lights on, and your lot are still sat in the road. That could be someone's mum dying.
Actually, there's one of our guys pointing the route round on there. What I would say is that, look, we're asking. I agree with you. For what it's worth, I agree with you. I think it's ridiculous that it's down to nurses, doctors, cleaners, barmen to be sat in the road demanding what the government should just be doing.
What?
You know, if the government
not letting someone on. Look, the blue lights are on. Someone needs emergency care, and you've got people lying in the road there. And also, it's all very well and good saying, well, we might let them out of the way, we want to let them out of the way. How can you let them out of the way if you've glued yourselves to something?
Patrick, why are we not talking about the real disruption here? OK, when we hit 40 degrees C earlier on in the year, the London Fire Service had their busiest day since the Blitz. Why do we not talk about that?
Well,
why is it certain sections of the media choose to clip little things like this and misrepresent it? Because you've got a vested interest in manipulating your audience. Why don't you tell them the truth? Why don't you tell them the truth that we are on course now for crop failure and societal collapse?
The reason why I'm doing that is because yesterday you sat here and you had ample opportunity to put your side across, which you did. Talking of telling the truth, you also told me and our nation categorically that people with the blue lights on emergency service would be allowed through. And that wasn't true, was it? Because I've just played you a video clip there.
I'm not going. We've just covered this. Like, that is one of our people advising that ambulance to go around the traffic. So we have a blue light policy, and we've always had a blue light policy. In fact, after the Insulate Britain campaign last year, there was the ambulance services were contacted. Not a single ambulance. They couldn't point to a single ambulance that had been disrupted.
At one. There was just one on the screen there, and you got to understand.
They got advice to go around. They got put round in the shortest.
But so hang on a minute. But yesterday the blue light policy was to let them through. Now it's advising them to go around you.
Whatever's the quickest way for the emergency services to get through.
Well, what is it? You're the spokesman.
I mean, it's. Patrick, do you understand how serious this situation is? This is, I mean, no one wants to be
very serious for the person in the back of that ambulance.
I think it's more serious, actually, than that. You know, we're heading towards serious societal collapse, the way that things are going, right? When you get extreme weather events, you get crop failure, you get people die, you get societal collapse. Why are you not using your platform to tell the British people?
We are.
Why don't you get a climate scientist in here, a real climate scientist, to explain to everyone what society is going to look like if things continue the way that they are?
OK, so you've done that again. You've spoken to me about this yesterday, and just on that note, I just want to remind you again, just for the sake of avoidance of doubt, what you said to me yesterday.
Ambulance lane. We always leave a route through for people in it. I don't want anyone getting hurt, and you know, it's like, this is not my idea of a good time. I don't want to annoy anyone. I don't want to ruin anyone's day. But honestly, like, the situation they're in is so serious. All the instances of protesters getting out the way of ambulances, there's literally hundreds online, if you look for them. But the fact is you're trying to frame a particular narrative to your audience because you've got a vested interest in manipulating.
What's my vested interest, mate? I've got no skin in the game when it comes to the environment.
80% of UK media is owned by 5 billionaires, right? And they have a vested interest in maintaining...
And I own a media platform.
Well, GB News is funded by rich hedge fund managers who have a vested interest. And you guess what they have investments in. And the fact that, you know, you were pushing a certain narrative here, and you were doing a disservice to the British people. You were doing disservice to your audience.
Just hang on a second. Right, you had your platform yesterday, and indeed a bit today as well, to come on to talk about, as I let you do a lot yesterday.
I appreciate that.
Right, and it was a good interview, right? You spoke a lot about your causes and your big things. And then, you know, it's unfortunate for you. You say, well, why are the media now talking about... there is a video there of you letting some people through. That's fine. We're not disputing the fact. No one can dispute the fact that you do let some vehicles through. But the overarching point here is that if you hadn't have blocked ambulances today or fire engines today, we might have had you back on to talk more about your causes. But this is where inconveniencing the British public and putting lives at risk. It's not just, by the way, it's not just about not letting ambulances and fire engines through. The amount of police it diverts from, let's say, a stabbing or things like that, in order to go and police someone like your lot gluing themselves to something, it is harming people's lives. And as long as you use those tactics, you are going to keep finding yourself in a situation where you've got someone like me here questioning you about that, not your environmental aims. It's your own fault.
The people who are putting the British people at risk are the UK government, right? They are funneling £236 million a week of taxpayers' money, propping up the most profitable industry on earth. This would stop tomorrow if they commit to halting any new licensing and consents. You know, it's a no-brainer. You know it, I know it, everybody, every right-thinking person knows that that's what needs to happen. If we're all honest, we cannot continue on this trajectory. Our families are at serious risk. What don't you understand about this?
Well, what I don't understand is that you said yesterday that you had a blue light policy.
You're coming back to this, but you're concentrating on such a minor issue. Look at the big picture. Okay. We're talking about life as we know it, heading towards the complete catastrophe.
Like the person's life in the back of that ambulance.
Look at the big picture. Look at the big picture, Patrick. Like, we're talking about, there's already 33 million people displaced in Pakistan. We're talking about between 1 and 3 billion people displaced around the world by 2050. This is catastrophic. Okay. And, like, I hate that it's come to this. I think it's terrible that it's come to this. But why aren't the government doing something? They could do something. Why aren't they doing it? And why are you covering up for them? Why are you lying? Like, why is it you're pushing a certain narrative when you could call out the politicians? You could explain to the British people, like, exactly what's coming down the line.
By having you on the show and letting you just rant there for a period of time.
I'm not a climate scientist, but you could get a real climate scientist on to explain how critical this situation is. Why are you doing that? No, you get thoroughly unqualified people in. I've watched your channel.
So now I don't have the right kind of climate scientists on. So it's not just the fact that...
No, you're pushing a certain narrative because you're pushing the interests of the billionaire class, because that's who you work for.
I work for the billionaire class. Fantastic.
Well, let's talk about who funds GB News. Where did the money come from? What were their investments in? Why don't you tell your audience that? Well, do your research, guys. Have a look into it.
OK, there we go. Well...
Join us outside Downing Street, 11 o'clock every day.
And there's a cheeky advert if you want to go and cause mass disruption. Right, moving away from that right now. There we go. Loads of people getting in touch on this. GB Views at gbnews.uk. More than 35,000 migrants have crossed the Channel to the UK this year, according to the Ministry of Defence. That's more than the whole